Is that a new dance move?
It's testing.
What is going on? Do they have till episode 35 to get this right?
Episode better than episode.
Russ is back.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. We
Hello,
are
Russ. Can
live
you hear
on
us?
the I hear you guys.
Nice.
I want to say thanks again for tuning in. Technical difficulties. The internet's a big, scary place, and we're wading through safely. So thanks for hanging in there with us. We've got Curtis Fry on the top screen there. Curtis is one of the founders of Fly Fish Food. If you guys haven't checked them out, I know you've seen them, whether you realize it or not. These guys do an incredible job educating folks on fly tying and all things fly fishing. It is not just Curtis. We'll be joined later here in a moment by Clark Pierce, a.k.a. Cheech. And then a friend, Lance Egan, who's of the U.S. national team as well. So we've got an awesome evening for you guys. We've got an hour. I do want to remind people that during the stream, right now we're on YouTube, Facebook, and Instagram simultaneously. We will be answering questions. So as you have a question, please enter it in the comments. And we will go through, and these guys will be answering questions at the end. So don't save your questions for the end. Do them as you have them, and we'll grab them and follow up. So without further ado, the places they take you with Fly Fish Food in the Salt Lake Fisheries.
Thanks, Russ. And now you get to see these two jokers
yes.
to my right.
Look at that. My head's
and
halfway
Lance.
cut off. I think that's how people want it.
That is meant to be.
That is how it's supposed to be.
Yes.
If you kneel down or
Lower your chair.
lower your shoulders.
Get down to Lance height.
There we go. Now we're talking.
If you have never joined us on our podcast or our videos, you'll get used to this.
Yeah, it's a constant
We
thing.
are not super serious about stuff, except fishing.
Except dry fly fishing, right?
So we're kicking it off tonight, talking about our couple of local waters and what how we fish them, what we fish with, and then again, we're going to go through some questions and do what we can if people want to know something about what we're doing. But just brief background, as Russ mentioned, we're with Fly Fish Food, and we have some online presence and YouTube and Instagram and all that sort of thing. But we also have a fly shop here just south of Salt Lake City, and just a few minutes from the Provo River, a very popular but good tailwater coming out of the Uinta Mountains.
So yeah, a little bit about the shop too. We started the whole thing with fly tying tutorials on YouTube.
Yeah.
So if you're a fly tyer, and you want to see a crazy selection of materials, this is the place. So that's kind of how we got our start into it, but gradually grew into a full service shop. We have everything, but interestingly, we do not have a guide service out of the shop.
No. So we're going to be talking about a lake and lakes or rivers, and we have recommendations for you, but we're going to talk about them in general anyway. But we started in my office in my downstairs basement.
It was terrible
7 years ago.
There were terrible smells and hidden compartments with dubbing, that kind of stuff. But
we're here now. We have a big building, and we have a good time. Sell lots of Umpqua goodies in the shop. Tons of flies, hooks, materials, bags, packs.
Leaders tippet.
Waiter. Yeah, leaders tippet. I'm like, waiters. It's Umpqua waiters.
No.
But hey, let's enough about us. Let's talk about the river, which is literally just up the canyon from our shop.
Maybe give a breakdown. Like, everybody knows the Provo Rivers here.
Yeah.
But there's the upper, the middle, and the lower Provo Rivers. The upper Provo is out of the mountains into Jordanelle Reservoir. From Jordanelle to Deer Creek, it's the middle Provo, and from Deer Creek to Utah Lake, it's the lower Provo.
So it's a freestone from the headwaters, right? Down to Jordanelle, and then below each reservoir, and we have 2 tailwater sections.
Yeah. So, and they all fish fairly uniquely. There's a lot of private water up on the upper Provo, but down further in the tailwater sections, it's fairly accessible. I mean, we're going through some stuff right now with that, but anyway, it's not hard to find a spot to fish.
Yeah, mostly open for sure.
Yeah.
And most of the time people are wade fishing it. It's not like the Green River, which is another one we fish, where you can easily float it, although we do float it, especially coming up here in the summer. It's got a good little flow with some dry flies, and we can fish all summer. And from we have a fly craft. It's a little fly fishing raft.
Yeah, it's a little bit small to really put drift boats on.
Yeah.
People do put a few drift boats on, but there's some bridges and things that make it not drift boat friendly. And it's pretty small for drifters, in my opinion. So we do fish it in fly crafts and rafts and that kind of stuff.
And we are mentioning, if you were watching for us on Instagram, we are now on Instagram.
Yeah.
So anyway, so Provo Rivers, mostly brown trout, a few rainbows, whitefish, native, and if you get lucky, sometimes you can catch a brook trout or cutthroat.
Up high,
yeah. So when I was in college, I'd catch cutthroat down here, but not so much anymore.
Yeah, there were lots of cuts on the lower in the 90s.
In the 90s, back in the olden
catch
days.
1 or 2 still in the 2000s, but now it's been years and years and years since we've seen a cutty through
They were stocked then.
Yeah.
So favorite flies?
Boy, time of year. I mean, if you had to go all year, sow bugs, midge patterns,
Yeah.
Baetis nymphs. But if you went season by season,
Well, that's just the thing, is the Provo River is a very diverse fishery. I mean, it gets a lot of pressure. That's one thing people say, well, I don't even fish the Provo because it's so crowded. But in reality, you can fish it in a bunch of different spots of the river, and you can use a variety of different techniques. Like if you wanted to, just go fish dry flies, say in the summertime, you could wait until almost sundown and have awesome caddis fishing. You can fish an indicator rig. You can Euro nymph it. You can even throw streamers on the river. I mean, lots and lots of trout per mile on the river. But I think probably the most common way that people fish it is the bounce rig, or a drop shot, as some people call it, right?
Yep.
Curtis still fishes that way with a tennis ball sized indicator
And a spinning rod.
Right? Exactly.
no, he doesn't.
But
There's as far as kind of when people come in the shop patterns, they're getting Lance's tailwater sow is a good one, especially for your nymphers, the heavy bead-headed jig version.
Yeah.
What else?
thread Frenchies are good.
Frenchies, big deal.
Rainbow Warriors.
Yep.
Corn-fed caddis.
In the summer,
That thing
killer.
deadly.
Missing links. Be a
Oh
good
yeah,
one in the
that's one of my
summertime.
favorite.
Yeah.
Missing link.
Missing link. Yep. There's all kinds of stuff. Any sort of small midge pattern. We do a lot with bar emergers all year too.
Oh yeah, again another favorite.
Both
Yeah,
in the
it's-
Betas and the PMDs.
Yeah, which PMDs are starting right now, and been moving through a lot of PMD bar mergers and that
Split
sort of thing.
case.
Split case. Oh yeah,
Mhm.
split case. Man, there's a lot of good patterns.
That's the
It's like-
thing.
So rich in aquatic life.
Yeah, the Provo's fun. I think Cheech hit on something that's important. We do hear that it's crowded because it does get crowded. But the nice thing, as you also alluded to, Cheech, is that it's full of fish. It does have thousands of trout per mile. So it's a place we sometimes say, like I was talking to a customer earlier today about another local stream that doesn't get very much pressure, but it gets more pressure now than it ever has. And he was saying, I like to go there to get away from the crowds. And I said, I kind of don't fish there anymore because there's too many people that fish it now.
For as small as it is.
For a small, on smaller waters, if you get a small, stream, you can't really follow anybody. You get to the Provo, it's just big enough and there's enough fish per mile that I could go through a run and then 5 minutes later, Cheech can come through and catch fish right behind you because there's just that many fish.
Well, you miss a lot of fish when you fish through there.
Well, I was
so.
going to say that you could go first and then me, but
No, that's not how you said it, though.
I know I did it on purpose.
No, so
Just I was saying that even
even a caveman, even a squatch,
even
can do
you
it.
could catch a few behind me.
No, so and that's one thing to point out is the fish have to eat there. So and there are lots of they're on the lower section. There are lots of tubers that go down, so people get inner tubes and they go in, they go down, and they could go right over the top of a fish. Give the fish a couple minutes, they're going to be uprising again, eating food.
Yeah.
I mean,
I had once. It was in the summer because it was PMDs, and I was fishing a run. And these dudes came through in a canoe. They got as far over as they could, but right down the gut where the fish were rising. And my fly was literally 3 inches from the canoe as it floated by, and a fish took it and splashed the guy in the face. That'll teach him. He actually thought it was pretty cool.
it must have been one of those power bait scented canoes. I've seen them.
It's leaking out sardine oil out the back.
Yeah. So, and the middle Provo fishes a little bit differently too. I mean, you have a little bit different biomass up there. You have maybe more stone flies, maybe a little bit more friendly toward Euro nymphing. Would you say, Lance?
Yeah, it's a little easier to read the water. I like to describe the lower as lots of glides. It has some pocket water here and there, but it has a lot of long glides instead of the middle tends to have your classic like riffle pool, not a lot of glides, just much more pocket water and riffles.
Yeah.
So it's faster moving. Like you said, it has a few more stone flies, a few more larger like net building caddis. And
Yeah. And if you've never been here to Utah and fished the Provo River system, back in the day, the middle Provo used to be just kind of it used to be a freestone stream all the way to Deer Creek. And they kind of channeled it out for farming and irrigation. So it was just like a real straight shot. And then after that, Jordanelle Reservoir got put in the 90s. And then there was a big restoration project where they put all the bends and natural pools or natural looking pools back in the river. And, it struggled for a little while through that process. I remember going there and we were all griping about it because the fish size went down, they said, but there's some nice fish to be caught on the middle Provo and a lot of area to fish for them due to that restoration project.
it's a great fishery. Lots of water to cover, lots of techniques that you can apply there. And it's a place that is very, for me, I've loved being close to the Provo because it's versatile enough as a fishery that I can learn to fish streamers, learn to fish nymphs, learn to fish dries. You can swing soft tackles. You can do a dry and a dropper. You can do different type of nymphing rigs. It's been a really good tool for me to learn various techniques.
Yeah, I've always felt
place.
so. I really kind of cut my teeth on river fishing on the Provo when I was in college, and when I moved away, it was to me I'd fished some other rivers that to me didn't seem as technical as say the Provo or the Green. And I always say if you can master catching at least nymphs or anything on the Provo, you're probably going to be able to do okay. It's a good proving ground.
The fish are snotty there.
yeah,
for
they're
sure.
not they're not overly eager to
They're
jump.
not pushovers. No,
Yeah.
we get a lot of customers in that visit and they say, I've heard so much about the Provo, but it was crowded and I think it's fished out. And you're like, well, it's got 1,000 fish per half a mile.
Yeah.
It's really more than that. It's got, 3,000+ fish per mile. So
Yeah,
it's not
it's
fished out at
crazy.
all, but they are not. We tell people all the time in the shop, if you could do one thing wrong and the fish will ignore you all day, and you do everything right, and all of a sudden the fish come out of the woodwork and you're catching them like crazy.
Yeah, we took part in a electroshocking survey by the DWR, Division of Wildlife here in Utah, up on the Provo last fall, and I was blown away at the numbers. Like, it makes you feel really bad as an angler because you go through there and all these fish are coming up, and I'm like, man, go through and muster one or two, and you got 50 or 60 coming out of there every little hole. I mean, it's nuts.
They'll teach you not to burn through water.
Yeah,
They're
super
down
healthy.
there.
Super
Yeah.
healthy.
So that's the Provo River, right? What else do we need to say about the Provo? I think that's kind of the one that everybody knows about, right?
Yeah. And we'll get to questions at the end, of course, but one thing that we do get asked is, especially from people who are maybe not there, if you're from an area that has closures on rivers, Provo River's tailwater, as a tailwater, both of them are open year round. There's not a month that we don't fish it, I would say. I mean, we're nymphing or throwing whatever. We're just fishing it up. We will opt for other locations depending on the time of year. Speaking of which, we've spent a lot of time at Strawberry Reservoir, which is another one that we're going to
Let's talk about
into,
that. It's a stillwater, a big bad stillwater.
Yeah. So it's a combination of what used to be 2 reservoirs. They blew the dam, I assume.
Yeah, they must have done something to it. Some of the dam is still in place, so
Yeah.
I don't know if they completely got rid of it, but that's at least lower. And and then they filled it. They built a bigger dam on the Soldier Creek side, and then filled the 2 reservoirs combined to make one.
Yeah.
Right. So Strawberry Reservoir is now Strawberry and Soldier Creek together.
Yeah. So it's a really nice big fishery loaded with cutthroat of the Bear Lake flavor.
And these cutthroat are super cool. You hear some of the older guys that fished it way back when it had big rainbows, and they're all complaining about how the cutthroat don't fight or anything like that.
Yeah.
But you get the right cutthroat on the end of a fly rod, and it's going to put a tussle on. I mean,
That
some
is
of the
fun
fish
fish.
that we've caught this spring have been super impressive.
Yeah.
There's a slot limit there. So, and I think it's the most fished body of water in all of Utah, right?
Yeah.
So you can go to Strawberry though, and even if the parking lot is so full that you can't even find a spot to park your trailer, you can find a spot to fish.
Yeah,
Or even
for
if
sure.
you're walking from shore, you can walk
could
the
find
shorelines.
20
There-
spots to fish.
Yeah.
It's a big reservoir.
there's so much, and there's so many fish in it as well.
Yeah.
But the slot limit is there. What is it? You can't keep a cutthroat between 17 and 21 and
Mhm.
22.
Mhm.
So if you want to keep a fish, they call them slot busters. They're 22 inches or larger.
22. You have to be bigger than 22. Yeah.
Yeah.
You keep one of those.
22.01 inches.
One to over 22, and I think 3 under.
Yeah.
Is it
Yeah.
2 under. I
So-
can't remember. If you don't keep them, it doesn't matter.
The
Check
only
regs.
reason we bring that up is because the DWR, I think, has done a really good job to bring back Strawberry Reservoir, which was once overcome with chubs, and it's a very healthy fishery.
Yeah.
I mean, it depends on who you talk to. Some people will complain that it's just loaded with a bunch of
Dumb
smaller
cutthroat.
fish, dumb cutthroat, but man, are they fun to catch.
They can get very big. We saw a 30-incher come out this week. That was a huge fish. I mean, fat.
And another guy caught like a 26-inch rainbow on
There's
like,
some-
in
yeah,
dry
I
half
mean,
slide,
there's some
like on
big
an
ones.
egg-sucking leech.
Yeah.
So,
There are some giants for sure.
and what's cool about Strawberry is you can fish it from shore, you can fish it from a float tube, you can fish it from an awesome 20-foot crestliner or a little tiny 16-footer like Lance, but you can fish leeches, chironomids, dry flies, streamers, absolutely ginormous 10.5-inch streamers. You can fish it all those different ways because the water's so diverse there.
Yeah, we just released a video on our YouTube channel where we did dry fly fishing with the bionic ant, stellar Umpqua fly from old Lance Egan.
If your local shop does not have the bionic ant,
There's something wrong.
they need it.
It works on rivers and still water alike.
All right.
But yeah, we did a video on that. We showed catching some decent size cutthroat on dry flies. And then we'll also release a video maybe tonight of Lance and I went on a little hike around the reservoir and caught some fish from shore.
Did it on foot.
Yeah. And dry flies as well.
Yeah.
So I don't know, if you think about it, how many places can you catch, let's say, a 22-inch cutthroat
17 to 22, 23-inch cutties
on
all
dry
day.
flies?
Mhm.
Like
Constantly.
nuts.
All day long.
Yeah. I mean, it's crazy.
There again, it's another place where you can, like Cheech was just saying, you could go through giant streamers and just target the biggest, baddest fish, but not catch very many. You could throw medium-sized streamers and minnow imitations because there's a healthy chub population in the reservoir. There's also a lot of crayfish that get quite large. So you can throw kind of medium-sized streamers. You can throw buggers and leeches and blobs, for pulling flies, we call them, stripping flies, where you're casting and retrieving. A lot of our local lake anglers get in their float tubes or pontoon boats and either kick or get a trolling motor and troll flies around and catch fish that way. You can fish a chronomid rig below a strike indicator. You could fish a midge tip with chronomids or a floating line with chronomids.
Yeah.
You can fish damsels in the shallows. It has calabatus. So there again, it's a place where if you just put the time in, you could catch rainbows and cuts and learn how to catch them a variety of ways. And in doing so, you'll learn how to kind of navigate still waters because it's very versatile. It's not a place where you only catch fish on chronomids or you only catch fish on leeches or whatever. You can catch them lots of ways.
And it's, in a way, it's kind of a bunch of different still waters all put together because you've got some flats and some shallower water that'll have lots of chronomids. Other areas that are deeper, maybe not as many chronomids showing up. But
it has 230 feet, water down by the dam, but it has lots of shallows where it has littoral zone.
So I mean, if you're ever in Utah, give it a try. Stop by the shop. We'll point you in the right direction, but just phenomenal. And it really fishes great, year round. I mean, if you're a nice fisherman, but as well in the winter, but certainly the times we're there and spring through fall, late fall. I mean,
it's a higher elevation lake too. So like you go there on a July day and it's going to be nice and cool in the morning. It'll get kind of hot in the afternoon, but it's like very pretty area to be around too. So Strawberry Reservoir.
Strawberry is a fun place. I like it. Can't get enough right now.
The cool thing about Strawberry that I've really liked to do is in a boat, just kind of fish it as if you were fishing for bass. We take little bait fish patterns and throw them up against the cliff walls and just pull them off, and you just see these huge fish appear out of nowhere.
Yeah,
it's
phenomenal.
It rivals dry fly fishing.
So fun.
Yeah,
the righteous life. We're talking about Strawberry Reservoir in Utah. Just thank you for the comment.
Yeah,
since you just joined.
So what are we going to talk about next? What other types of fishing do we do around here? I mean, for the warm water people, if you're here early spring, you could go fish for white bass at Utah Lake.
Or if you're here now, you could do smallmouth, Deer Creek, Jordanelle, Echo. Lots of reservoirs around with smallmouth and largemouth.
Yeah, I think that's often overlooked too. I mean, the warm water species are so fun to catch. Wipers, Willard Bay has absolutely phenomenal wipers, which is a white bass, striped bass hybrid.
Yeah.
If you can find those and have like a Clouser minnow type pattern.
Minnow?
Did I say minnow?
Go back to your vernal voice.
I don't know if these Umpqua guys are going to appreciate the Southern Preacher.
Is it Colorado or Colorado?
That's the question.
We'll have to ask him at the end.
Colorado. Nobody in Utah says Colorado.
Colorado. But some people do say minners.
Minners. We was up there throwing minners. So somebody says, what's a good search pattern for the middle Provo in June, July? We can answer that question.
Yeah, that's a good one.
A good search pattern.
The red dart.
Ooh. The red dart would be a good searching pattern. I
would
guess it depends
say
on whether you're doing dries or streamers or nymphs.
true.
Or...
If I were up there and I was pulling out of, if I was pulling out of Lance's fly box, I would fish like a, whatchamacallit, the Pat's rubber leg that has a tungsten bead and maybe a thread Frenchie.
Be a good way to search.
Yeah. So Lance, what does a searching pattern mean? The Mr. Host is telling us. What does that mean?
What does a searching pattern mean? Well, I suppose a searching pattern could be something that's not really specifically imitating. You know, if you're fishing a crackback PMD nymph, you're specifically imitating that insect, the PMD, a little mayfly. So a fly like a red dart or even a hair zero or prince nymph could be deemed an attractor or a searching pattern, something that you're just putting down there that could look like a variety of things that the fish might eat. To me, a searching pattern would be something that would be a confidence fly, something that you've caught lots of fish on other places, so you're quite sure that fish like it, and you put it on. That could be, again, a dry fly. That could be a stimulator in a dry fly. That could be a royal wolf.
Squirmy, too.
Mm-hmm. Squirmy wormy is a good searching pattern,
one.
especially as we're still experiencing a little bit of high water.
Mm-hmm.
That's a good one.
Yeah, so that's what a searching pattern. You hear attractors kind of fall in that thing, as Lance was saying.
Yeah, so I think another question, people maybe who are obviously not from Utah would want to know, what's the best time of year or a good time of year to fish, let's say the Provo. Right now is pretty good. Water's still a little on the high side, but fish are
fishing well.
It's fishing really well right now. I guess if I had to choose, it would be probably a July and August kind of time frame, because the dry fly fishing can be phenomenal and the fish are just super hungry. But you can also go there in the winter. I love fishing in the winter there. So if you're ever around, I mean, it's
a year-round fishery.
Yeah, it really is.
Yeah.
Strawberry. If I had to pick one time, boy, I don't know. The last month is
right now
just insane.
The first week of the elk hunt.
But yeah,
all those dudes that are in there, trolling boats are out chasing elk.
Yeah,
and
definitely not as many boats and people on the water. Which again, with strawberry is not a huge thing, but
yeah,
so good.
And also, Heidi, I see your question. We do fish the strawberry in the middle of the summer.
Yeah.
Strawberry, you will find a lot of fish really deep, but we also will find them still hugging kind of shoreline where there's an escape to deep water fairly close by. So as long as there's a steep drop off at Strawberry, you'll find fish even in the middle of the summer. Russell Pennington Miller says, question, Lower Provo, tight line Euro style or bobber drift?
Did we put that? Is that on our end that says Russell Pennington?
I don't know.
Really
that's all I know Russ as.
That's because that's what we call him.
I refuse to call him just Russ.
If we did anything else. Russ works for Umpqua, and he's a good friend of ours.
Yeah.
And I like Russ and I are on Team USA together, so we spent a little more time together than we probably should have. But I like to know people's middle names, so I call him Russell Pennington Miller. So we all have kind of adopted that, and now it says that right here, Russell Pennington Miller.
I put when I first met Russ at I think one of the shows, that's how I put his name in my phone.
Pennington, he's a stud. Please no more, he says. Please no more.
All right.
Pennington, come on.
So we'll answer your question. Tight line Euro style or bobber drift?
Yes.
Yeah, all of it works. I think that we all would prefer to use a Euro style just because
in general,
for us, it's probably more effective. We can get to different spots on the river that the bobber's maybe not going to be as effective.
Yeah.
That's my preference.
But most of the guides locally are fishing indicator rigs, mostly with bounce rigs, as we noted earlier, with the weight on the bottom and flies on droppers above the weight. So you can catch them lots of ways. I don't know that there's a right or wrong. Whichever you're more comfortable with would probably work really well.
That being said, when someone comes in and they're brand new to fly fishing, they want to go fish the Provo River, I'm not going to go get them set up with a Euro rig and everything. I'm going to show them the bounce rig because it's very simple to do. You can do it with a 9-foot 5 weight. It doesn't take a lot of stuff to do. So,
and lots of YouTube videos on how to set that up, as well as the nymphing side too. But so do whatever works for you, and don't be afraid of any technique. They can all catch a fish.
Federico says he's from Argentina and fished the Provo 20 years ago. How is that now and 20 years ago? I think he means how was it? How is it now compared to then?
How does it compare now to then? I've only been fly fishing for 20 years.
Well, then,
and so I was still a noob back then.
Tomatela. We're still noobs.
Federico salió de 10. Sorry, you get Spanish on the podcast with us or on the Umpqua live stream.
I would argue that the middle Provo fish is very different because 20 years ago it was the middle Provo, but like 30 years ago it wasn't the middle. Right. It was just all the upper Provo because Jordanelle Reservoir didn't exist until about 92, I think. So the middle Provo, when Jordanelle first got it put in place, all of a sudden the fish had cold, clean, consistent water all year, all summer, and especially, and they did really well. So it used to have much, much less fish per mile than it does now, but the average size was larger. Over time, it kind of cycles a little bit to where we go lots of small, and then a few large and lots of small. But so it's changed. The lower Provo, I would argue, is very similar to 20 years ago. It maybe has a little bit smaller fish than it did 20 years ago, and it has more rainbows now than it did 20 years ago.
Yeah, and fewer cutthroats.
And no cutthroats.
Well, there's your answer.
RCB, Clark.
But it's all worth fishing.
Yeah, it's all good. I mean, and that's the other thing is there are lots and lots of rivers. They're changing all the time. Even rivers that you fished 5 years ago are gonna morph over time. So
we've tried this on our podcast, but they don't send us anything. But we love you anyway, Dr. Pepper. This is the Umpqua live stream, so Umpqua, I'm sure, would love a case of Dr. Peppers just in case anybody Dr. Pepper is listening.
Since Lance started doing that, we'll show up to the shop and there'll be random 12 packs of Dr. Pepper on the porch. It's awesome.
It's all good, man.
Yeah. Let's talk about the Green River.
Rio Verde.
The Rio Verde. So that's not really a local. Well, it's like 3.5 hours away from here, but it's a Utah river. We sell a ton of flies that go over there to fish. And we fish it a lot too. So a lot's relative when we're stuck in the shop, but we still fish it. We're familiar with the river. What do you guys think of the Green River?
The Green River, it's
worth doing.
It's too far of a drive. I wouldn't go.
Don't do it. That's
the canyon's like red walls and beautiful trees.
Yeah, it's
like, I don't know, 18,000 trout per mile. That's no joke. I probably wouldn't go because there are lots of people already fishing it, really. But
this is Lance telling you don't go,
but you should
he wants
go.
It all to himself.
You should go. It's a beautiful place. Just packed full of fish. Always clear water. Even when it's blown out at like 10,000 cubic feet per second, it still has relatively clear water.
Yeah. We had a podcast a while back. I don't know. When was that? It was this year sometime with Colby Crossland from Spinner Fall on our podcast, and you can check it out on the YouTube channel. We talk a lot more in depth about it, but Green River is definitely one of my favorites. When I was in college here 20-ish years ago,
40.
That's 43.
We would go there so often. It was just, and that's just, to me, was the pinnacle. It was so good. And it's still good. The cicadas are going off right now.
Let's talk about cicadas for a sec, because you hear about people saying, well, there's a huge cicada hatch coming off this year. We got to hit it. Or, you hear about these cycles of cicadas, but every single year you get cicadas on the Green River. They're different sizes, but if you haven't seen a cicada, it's not S-I-C-K. It's do a Google search for cicada, and they're crazy looking.
I think
bugs.
you mean cicada.
Cicada, C-I-C-A-D-A.
Yeah, we do hear it pronounced lots of ways. So if we back up a little, though, the Green is a tailwater fishery. It comes out of Flaming Gorge Reservoir, at least to the Utah Green. The Green River is I don't know of any place that has more fish per mile than the Green, and they're not dinks. It's hard to catch a fish under 12 inches probably.
Yeah.
And that's even rare. Most of the fish are like, I would say 15 to 20 inches is kind of the norm.
Yeah.
But you can certainly catch 30-inch fish there, but I never have. I need to go
we need to go more.
Yeah, I need to go have Charlie show me his ways. Charlie Card.
Right. But the cool thing about the Green is you can weight it in certain sections. There are the A section, B section, C section. So instead of like the Provo River where it's broken up by reservoirs, they're broken up by the takeouts. It's kind of dictated by the floats that you would do if you were to float the river in a boat or a raft.
Because it's a canyon.
It is a canyon. But obviously the A section gets fished a little bit more than the B and C sections, but they all have their merits. They're all phenomenal fisheries and fairly unique in the different sections that you fish.
So at most flow conditions, it is very possible to wade. It is,
Yeah.
It's a float fishery also, but it's definitely possible to wade. It has lots of shallows and riffles, and it's a great place to be.
Yeah. In fact, we might be going there Thursday.
We are going there Thursday.
We better go Thursday.
We
we missed out last year because the shop
Yeah.
was pretty busy and we were busy, but we're making time this year.
We actually have a really cool video of a B section float that we did in February this year, where we just threw streamers the whole time.
Oh yeah,
And it was absolutely amazing. I caught a ton. I rode these two into a lot more fish, so I get credit for all the fish that day.
Perfect.
And
Let's do that again.
Yeah. No, I got to stop saying that because then you'll agree to just let me row.
Well, now wait a minute. I rode half the river last time. You rode half of it.
I know, but I still caught my own fish.
Oh, so
With you, I had to row you into
so
everything.
the recycling that I did in your cherry
That is
picking
true.
run didn't count.
That
Right.
was an epic run.
We just left because we ran out of daylight, not because we
Right.
ran out of fish.
But yeah, I mean, the Green River is an awesome fishery where you can dial in like micro nymphing, like a lot of the really small midge flies that you would see. Umpqua has a huge selection of those. You can fish big foam flies. You can fish mayflies. You can fish caddis. You can fish big streamers, small streamers. There's so many different ways to catch fish on that river.
I would argue most of the guide services tend to focus on dry fly or dry dropper fishing most of the summer. You can always catch them nymphing, but it's a great place in clear water to just go almost all summer long. Once you start bluing olives, you have a little bit of a high water time in most years, and then you start getting right into right now where we have cicadas, PMDs, and you start seeing caddis and sallies. And then it transitions to terrestrial fishing, ants, beetles, hoppers, crickets, and then right into the fall again with bluings and midges in the winter. And then, as Cheech mentioned, a streamer fishery as well. It's a great place. If you haven't fished the Green, you really should.
Yeah, and another thing, I'll throw this out there for your own safety. If you haven't rowed a boat in a river, the A section of the Green is not really the best place to try for your first time. Nor the B. Oh, yeah, the B. Lance and Curtis won't even stay in the boat for Red Creek Rapids with me. Oh, geez. Do a search on that.
Confidence is low.
Anyway, but yeah, just take your boat out on a lake or something, or find an easier section of river to row. But it'll chew up a boat or two. There was a brand new clacker craft that made its home on a rock on the Green for a couple weeks already this year, right?
Oh, I'm sure it's not the only one. That's just the most recent one.
Right. Yeah. We also have a picture of one of our buddies rescuing a guy in an overturned pontoon boat.
Yeah.
Remember the one I showed you?
Yikes.
So yeah, I mean, that being said, though, it's a totally doable river if you've got a little bit of experience behind the oars. But and I would highly recommend floating it if you can. It's just amazing. You look up and they're huge cliff walls and everything. So
yeah.
We do have a question, though, back to Euro fishing, like in, on the Provo or on the Green or wherever. Is it possible to get a good drift on the Euro rig with two small flies? It doesn't seem to have enough weight if there is any wind.
We look
both
at
you,
Lance.
Lance.
Well, that's a hard. I mean, the question doesn't really give us enough. What are small flies and how much weight are they? Because you can make small flies that are very heavy.
Yeah.
So the question is, yes, you absolutely can. You need to could drift on the Euro rig. The Euro rig is what? Well, you have to decide what your Euro rig is to give us a little more detail to really answer it. But if you did a really thin leader, would help with small flies, and if you had really dense small flies, larger beads, not too much dubbing, no legs, thin tail, so they sink fast. You can definitely get down with very small flies with the Euro rig and get a great drift.
Yeah, one time we were fishing a little bit higher water. We actually have it on video, but Lance fished a size 16 with a 4mm tungsten bead on it.
Yeah.
So it's basically a huge silver orb with a little bit of thread and dubbing.
It had Coke de Leon on it too. It was a nice, beautiful tail.
Oh, jeez. So if all else fails, just throw on a huge bead and hope for the best.
He's
That's all you
sour
need to
because
do.
we did a little baseball, and
Oh, that wasn't the same. Oh, no, that was
it was the same. I think we got was it 5 casts, or did I get 3 and you got 5?
I don't know. I was cheating.
Oh, well, I don't know. If you were cheating, you were losing still. So
I know. I have to cheat to even try to compete.
no, you don't. I've seen you fish before, but anyhow, you can definitely get down with small flies. You got to adapt your leader, and you have to adapt the flies, but it can be done.
Yeah.
So Craig says zebra midge flies. So
Which you can make
yeah,
very dense small flies go fast.
Yeah, if you're talking about a store-bought zebra midge fly that has a 2mm bead, not going to be enough weight.
yeah. So buy like a size 18 jig hook, throw a big old bead on there.
But you could combine a small, even small beaded, let's say a size 20 zebra midge with a 2mm bead, and pair it with a larger, heavier fly to help it get down.
Yeah, for sure.
I know we find on our local tailwaters we find a lot of the Colorado and maybe Pennsylvania, to call out a couple of states that have techier fishing, that have a lot of they fish a lot of small flies. Colorado in particular, a lot of people are it's so ingrained in them that they have to fish 22s that they think they can't catch anything on a bigger fly. But if they just try larger patterns, even if you try it as a sacrificial weight, I think you'll be surprised if you're using a size 14 or 12 red dart with your size 20 zebra midge. I think you'll be impressed with how many fish actually take the big fly.
Yeah.
Those are just the dumb ones, though. We don't want to catch.
I like the dumb ones. I rely heavily on those.
Yeah, maybe that's what it is. Utah's just full of really dumb fish.
It could be.
Yeah.
They get a lot of pressure.
There's something about a red dart that makes them dumb, though.
Oh, here's a good question. Have you Eurofished out of a boat?
Yes.
Yes. We did in Argentina a little bit with old Mr. Stephen Bennett.
It can be challenging, but it's definitely doable. The fish you have to be able to get within 30, 35, maybe 40 feet max of the fish, ideally more like 20 to 30 feet from the fish in the boat to make it work. So a crystal clear, flat spring creek type of float fishery, I wouldn't be my technique of choice. But a place with broken water, the Madison, I've done it on sections of the Henry's Fork. You can certainly do it on the Provo or the Green in certain sections. The oarsman will need to be pulling quite hard to slow your drift down. But if you have a skilled oarsman that's willing to pull,
like me,
unlike him, no, Cheech always pulls. I'm just teasing.
Because of these guns.
Yeah, which one?
Both of them.
Both. Anyway, it can be done. You can Eurofish out of a boat. It's not always our preferred technique, but you can do it. And there are times where it's very effective. We tend to fish. I don't know why we do this, but I think I can speak for all of us in saying that when we float fish, we tend to fish dries first, maybe dry dropper second, or maybe even streamer second with dry dropper third. And I don't really nymph out of a boat. I have, but I don't much anymore. You sure can.
Yeah,
it's very effective.
That's how
it's a good question,
rate it too. Yeah, that is a good question.
What other good questions do we have? Can you Euro out of a raft? Hello, gentlemen.
I wouldn't say gentleman.
Yeah,
gentleman.
To us.
Curtis
he
is
must
here.
see Pennington Miller on there.
Oh yeah, that's true. Do you get big salmon flies on the Provo?
Not anymore.
Used to.
Used to.
Be able to follow the seagull flock down the canyon and track where they were.
Listen to
If
this
you
guy.
remember that?
The seagulls.
Man.
I like it.
Wow, that was old days. Yeah, I would know where the hatch was because I would see the seagulls following them down the canyon. Every couple days, it would get further down.
There are a couple rivers where you can fish salmon flies that will not be named here because they're a little sensitive, but
Yeah.
it's not hard to figure out. But and that's the other thing is there's a lot of those little smaller gems of rivers that
Salmon flies and drakes.
Yeah, well, and the beauty of those is I remember one time we were fishing one of those rivers. We were throwing every salmon fly we had in the box. It didn't work, and then we threw like a big old pink Chernobyl and caught like every fish in the hole. And we were watching them eat the adult salmon flies.
They were on the water. Yeah,
that's the red dart of dry flies. It's just terrible. Terrible tie.
This guy says, I heard that if you listen to the Beastie Boys, you catch more fish. Has this been proven?
Yes.
Lance
Absolutely.
proves that theory.
Proves it. Okay.
Lance also listens to Luke Bryan.
I do not do that. Not unless you want to watch my ears bleed.
Oh, geez. So
what else? Curtis gets the lone camera. Yes, we had some technical difficulties, so Curtis is the lone camera.
I prefer it that way.
Lance and I are a power couple anyway.
Easy.
We are in the same room, though.
Yes. Hello, Curtis's hand.
Yeah, maybe it's not quite
we
that
didn't
far
see
over.
that.
I'd have to smack Lance in the face to get that far over. But
Your arms aren't long enough for that?
this is
prove it.
our normal podcasting setup.
Yeah. And this
What
is
else?
usually how our podcasts go. We get sidetracked by
Oh, yeah. We take
non-fishing.
detours.
Tomahawk says, show the Weber some love. The Weber is another good
Oh, yeah.
river that's local. That's got some freestone, one freestone, I guess, and two tailwater sections, much like the Provo. Has a few less fish per mile, but is a very fun fishery. More whitefish than the Provo, but also maybe a few more large fish than the Provo has, I would argue. It's a fun one. Great caddis hatches. Good mayflies, but not as consistent mayfly hatches.
Right.
It has great hopper fishing late summer. Doesn't have quite as much available water. It's got more private property, but it's a great river. Why is Umpqua such a great company? Says old Kelly Blue Book Barnes, also known as Vintage Fly.
Well, because they've got some awesome people.
Umpqua does have awesome people.
I would start it. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
No, you go.
I would say the quality of their flies is second to none.
Like very good.
When you're a fly shop and you rely on flies as a major source of income, and you order flies in that are junk, people are going to look at that and not really want it. And they're not the cheapest flies at all. I mean, Umpqua's they're high end stuff, and we don't have people even bat an eye because the quality's so good and they're so effective. So that's one thing I really like about Umpqua.
Yeah. Well, and again, for us, so over the years, Umpqua has been a key part of our growth as a shop. All the guys there and gals work well with us. Actually, most people in the industry are very good to work with.
Sure.
Umpqua's definitely no different.
Even Josh Graffam?
Josh, he's sketchy.
Yeah. I mean, big shout out to Alec, our rep. You know, he took over for Josh, and that's when we've just seen things go through the roof.
Low blow.
Just kidding.
Low blow.
We love all those
roasted.
If you want to go on the roasting as far as Josh goes, somebody saw the picture that Umpqua posted for this podcast
where he was fishing,
where Josh Graffam is fishing. And Josh, just so you know, I had a couple people that thought you were Cheech. Just saying.
Maybe keto's in your future, buddy.
Oh, Joshua, we love you.
Oh, yeah, but no, they have awesome products. I've used their leaders, tippets, tools,
packs and bags.
Packs and bags for us have been huge. I think they're known for flies and leader and tippet for sure, but their packs and bags for us are a top seller, and I think that a lot of shops honestly are missing out on one of the better designed bag selections, packs and bags.
If you're listening to this, do some research on what the zero sweep means. I heard that story, and it's pretty awesome. So we'll leave that for your own research, but it's a huge deal. We all use Umpqua bags. So yeah, cool.
How about
How
unrelated to fishing, but we do have a question on tying.
Yeah, I think we're going to do the same one.
How to get into fly tying?
What's the best tip
way?
for learning to?
Well, let's talk about some things not to do.
Don't call it flying ties.
Well, that's always fun.
You can come on, Lance.
Well, that's what people do all the time.
I would fly ties. Don't get a big old kit.
Yeah.
Because I mean, with kits you get a lot of stuff that you probably don't need out of the bag or out of the gate. Start with some flies in mind, like a zebra midge or thread Frenchie or a sow bug. And we actually do have some fly tying 101 kind of courses on our website, flyfishfood.com, and it will show you a list of materials just for those ones to get started. So I would say start with some simpler nymphs, woolly bugger, and then go with those, tie those repetitively. We've got videos on all the stuff we have with material lists, so you can get that all. It's pretty easy to do.
Which is a good point. We have so many customers who come in and say, well, when do you have your next beginner's fly tying class?
Yeah.
So here's what happens. People will sign up for these classes, and we even offer them for free a lot of times.
Yeah.
And then they just don't show up. So we have to lock them down to like 10 or 15 people. They say, yeah, I'll be there. They don't come. And then they're kind of a bust. So YouTube and watching videos is the best way, I think, to get into fly tying, because you don't have to, hope that you can see the instructors fly from 15 feet away. It's right in front of your screen. It's really easy to do. I mean, sorry, I cut you off there, but that's what
that
I
hurt
think.
my feelings.
I know. That's what my job title is, feeling herder.
Feeling herder.
But the videos are huge.
Yeah. And again, just practice. Start with simple stuff and then graduate up the curve. You buy only the materials that you need for those flies, and then just keep going with it.
Yeah, and we have videos, everything from a zebra midge, and we have a playlist for beginner flies, like all Lance's stuff, and you graduate up to the stuff that Curtis and I tie.
Yes.
So
the stuff that doesn't work versus the stuff that does.
There's that.
I was waiting for it, Lance.
I was trying to decide whether or not to do it.
No. But we watch a bunch of videos. If you can, buy the very best stuff you can afford. If you can only afford like a $15 vise that's used, then go for it. That's great. But if you can afford, a nicer vise in the, a $200 vise that's going to last you 30 years, that's a much better option if it's in your budget. Get good tools. Ask questions too. There are lots of resources out there online where you can share patterns and everything. We have a Facebook group called Fly Tying with Uncle Cheech, where you can share stuff and all that. So it's a good way to grow.
Yeah. And all right. So some other questions. Non-trout fishing.
Non-trout fishing. All right.
Let's talk about it. We all
talk about it.
Non-trout fish over here.
Yeah. Carp and catfish.
Love it.
Yeah.
What kind of questions?
Bring it on. We like carp.
I have caught 3 species of catfish on a fly.
Oh, really?
Little trivia subject.
Carp and catfish. Well, I haven't done a lot of catfish fishing, but carp fishing will ruin you. You'll lose your desire to fish for trout for like 4 months
or years.
So, Lance, you've done a lot of carp fishing in your day.
I like carp fishing. It's a lot of fun.
Why? Well, the thing about, when people say carp's easy because you just throw a big dough ball out there and they just
that's what they eat all the time.
Exactly.
That's what nature feeds them.
So why is it so challenging with a fly?
Carp are not very aggressive, so you have to, I guess you don't always have to sight fish, but it's mostly a sight fishing game because they're not as aggressive to this bass or trout where they won't chase down stuff very often. Occasionally they will, but most of the time you need to find a fish, see which direction they're facing, and put a fly right in their face. So it's a very, it's kind of more of a hunting mentality. You're sight fishing and you're making very technical, very accurate casts without too much splash, so you don't spook the fish. It's usually done in relatively shallow water because you need to be able to see them. Or if it's over deep water, they're going to be suspended right near the surface so you can see them. And either way, they're very spooky. So they're a very fun fish. They're very hard to catch. They're very adaptive, so they'll feed on crayfish, they'll eat chironomids, they'll eat aquatic vegetation, they'll eat terrestrial vegetation, they eat
I
cottonwood
caught one
seeds
on a
and berries
bionic
and
ant last year.
ants. They love ants. I've caught lots of them on ant hatches too. They're awesome. They're just a fun fish, and they're great if you don't have trout fishing near you because they're found nearly everywhere. They're also great in the summer when some of the lakes are getting a bit warm for trout. The carp will be in the shallows. They're a good way to pass some time. The dog days of summer.
That's
awesome.
what I would say is, the two big pluses for carp are they're very readily available, and you're going to find that they pull harder than most any trout that you're going to catch. So, take your 6 weight, take your 7 weight.
They're fun. Lots of fun.
Or if you have a 5 weight that you hate, take that because you're going to break it.
All right. I think we're about out of time.
Yeah, 4 minutes.
I would
minutes.
say if you have other questions, you can hit us up on the Instagram direct on our Fly Fish Food Instagram. You can go to flyfishfood.com where you find our tutorials and online store. We sell lots of Umpqua goodies there. In our YouTube channel, we're always doing tutorials and kind of how to fish such and such technique. We've got, 500 some odd videos on YouTube. And,
most importantly, watch for future episodes of this show, Umpqua, the places they take you. Yeah,
there was that professionalism.
See that?
There's that professionalism they were talking about.
On the next episode.
On the next episode of The Places They Take You, you will learn from Josh Graffam how to... No, just kidding.
Yes.
All right.
So once again, store.flyfishfood.com for our web store, flyfishfood.com for a lot of our tutorials, YouTube, Flyfish Food.
And if you missed this, you will be able to watch it on YouTube. They're going to repost it.
Yeah.
So
on Umpqua's YouTube channel.
Umpqua's, yeah, not on the Fly Fish Food YouTube channel where everybody gives thumbs down. So go to their YouTube channel, give them a like and a follow and a thumbs up.
You guys are awesome. Thanks for joining us. It's been good to be here, and I'm sure we'll do this again sometime.
And their YouTube channel is Umpqua Feather
Merchants.com.
That's the fast talk.
What else? That about it? We
Polling.
out.